Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Fawn is sitting here with...
Kevin Horde.
How you doing, my man?
Feeling frisky.
Very, very well. Let's just carry on. We're going to finish out this Carnage of Krell. This is the final episode of the 4-episode arc involving General Krell here.
Yes, sir.
With an air date of November 18th, 2011. This is Season 4, Episode 10, Production 4.02, written by Matt Michnovitz and directed by Kyle Dunleavy.
Looks like...
So, yes, Matt has written all 4 episodes, as you surmised last week.
Congratulations, Matt. I wish I knew
Very
you
well
personally.
done. Right. The fortune cookie is our actions define our legacy.
Yeah.
What do you got, man? What do you got?
Jango Fett.
That's a good call. Yeah, because I couldn't think of any Jedi that would be that concerned about legacy, right?
Yeah.
Not in this broad sense.
I didn't really put a lot of thought into this one, and honestly, Jango Fett popped in my head, like, as you were reading it. But initially I was thinking more like Sidious or Darth Bane or Dooku. Somebody that is more concerned with what they're going to leave behind. But I guess...
Maybe like a Kylo Ren?
Maybe? Or a Snoke?
He seems they both seem somewhat concerned about that sort of thing, right?
Right. But I think more so they're concerned with what they can get out of it, not what they're going to leave for somebody else. Right. That's why I was thinking Jango Fett.
Right.
Which is, I guess, appropriate because his legacy continues through the clones. Not just Boba Fett, but all of the clones of our Clone Wars. So, yeah. That's my thought.
I like it. I dig it.
Cool.
Go with it. Yeah. I didn't have anybody else myself either. I like this, but unlike last week, I like this one though. I know last week we kind of had problems with the messaging of the fortune cookie.
Yeah, I almost said that this one was stupid, but instead I said that it was Jango Fett.
Yeah, no, I like this one, or at least maybe in comparison to last week. It's not the best fortune cookie we've gotten, but I'm not gonna lie, none of the fortune cookies really stick with me. I could not name another one if you ask me right now. But
the only episode that you haven't been on for this show is the only one that was actually a direct quote.
Like from the movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you missed that one.
That's all right.
Yeah. Looking at or hearing this one from Jango Fett's mouth, I'm down with it. It's cool. It's whatever.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. So what do we got going on in the Carnage of Krell?
So the newsreel basically just recaps all 3 previous episodes in very quickly. It basically, if not giving out plot points, it definitely gives overall feelings of how everybody's feeling. So it does state that, again, Anakin Skywalker is out of here. Everybody's under Krell. Everybody seems to hate him, basically. But it does mention that Fives and Jesse disobeyed orders, and they will be court-martialed for it. Again, as we mentioned last week, treason.
This is actually where I learned Jesse's name. It was not in last week's episode at all.
Yeah.
That I remember.
Yeah, I don't
remember hearing it, but when I heard the newsreel for this episode, I was like, oh, his name's Jesse. I had heard somebody say something about Jesse, but I didn't know who it was. Now I know.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I don't remember taking a note if his name was mentioned or not last week, because for a while I was really good at mentioning unnamed character named this person. But I've gotten into such a flow of watching these now where I'm just like, I'm missing that too if they're mentioning it or not, or if I just already happen to know who these characters are.
It's pretty tough sometimes, man.
Right. Especially when we're dealing with like a 4-episode arc with nothing but clones and one Jedi Master.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information that kind of happens, so it's hard to kind of go back and double check if a name was mentioned at all, right?
Yes, and I also will say the current means of me watching this media does not have subtitles.
Right.
So that drops some details off, such as people's names and stuff like that. Other than that,
and also, I agree with you. The means by which I'm watching, also does not contain subtitles, and I used to depend on the subtitles for name spellings, but now I'm kind of watching episodes with Wikipedia in the background, so I'm kind of glancing over on occasion. So I think that's why my mind kind of misses if the name is mentioned or not, too, because I'm kind of taking in information from Wikipedia at the same time.
Right.
Should, like, say, 2 clones enter a scene, rather than waiting for clones to be introduced or the introduction is being skipped.
Like,
I kind of get that information immediately of who they are.
You just know it's Fives and Jesse, but you don't know who Fives is and who Jesse is.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Which I think last week I mentioned that I still will always have trouble telling clones apart. And I think that's part of it, is that I'm reading names from like an information log, shall we say, right?
Maybe you're just race blind
and then
against clones.
Maybe. Like, also, like, I've never been great with names in general.
Right.
Like, at parties, somebody can introduce themselves and my brain will just throw that information away unless it gets repeated continuously, right?
Is that why you called me Dick for like the first 3 months that I knew you?
Oh, yeah, just full dick. Full dick in it all over the place.
Interesting.
No, but like, what's funny is like the way we met and the way I'll meet certain people, when we got to know each other over the course of 12 hours in queue,
right.
And then we exchanged numbers. We exchanged phone numbers. So there was a moment where I had to actively write out your name into my phone.
Right.
In action like that, when I can see a name spelled out and it gets associated to you,
right,
that will help me.
Right.
So under circumstances like that, where I've met people at various conventions and various queues and stuff like that, I've gotten their names stick in my head very well. But there will be people, like even at work functions that I go to where people are wearing name badges, because everybody is wearing a name badge. I need some sort of differentiating action, shall we say, right? Such as like me looking at your face, asking your name one more time. I was like, hey, like Kevin, right? And then I actively type that in, and then we go about our business.
This is
right?
why I wear a name eye patch.
Right. It just needs to be right there.
Yep.
Just
it's right there.
Fully accessible. But there's definitely at like work functions where somebody's like, oh yeah, like this person needs your help with blah blah blah, and I'm like, who? We're in a room of like 100 people, and they'll have to like point them out or start describing the person physically, because I'm like, I'm just visually oriented, right? When it comes to memory, so
name eye patch, man.
Yeah.
And then
I need all the clones.
If you do wear a name,
all the clones need to have like an insignia. They need to have like an insignia where I can just see them like on the chest, right?
You know what's funny is that most of the clones that are named or have a significant part in an episode, they all do have different markings on their
like
on the
armor. Helmets even. Yes.
But even when they take the armor off, they've got something going on.
No, but here's the thing. So, like, yes, they all have differentiating marks, but then they don't repeat the names enough for some of them.
Oh, I totally
some of them
agree,
they do.
Which is why last episode I had no idea that the...
Tup.
I didn't know Tup, and I didn't know Jesse.
Fucking Tup. Jesse, yeah. But Dogma, I could tell apart pretty quickly because they kept calling him out by name, right?
Yeah, because he's like a semi-antagonist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he stood out for that reason as well. So, yeah, it's when we have these clone-heavy episodes, I do wish there was more of like, well, what do you think, Jesse? And then we cut to Jesse. Well, I don't know. What does Fives thinks? You know,
I'm able to pick up on who's who pretty well. So I'll just.
I suck at it. I self-admit to sucking at it. So I know that's a personal issue, but
I'll just have to fill you in the future.
Right.
But in the present, why don't you fill us in on what's going on?
So currently, we're still dealing with the aftermath of Fives and Jesse's actions from last week, in which they blew up a supply ship.
Mm-hmm.
Krell still wants to have them court-martialed and executed for, again, treason.
For treason.
Captain Rex basically meets up with Krell to try and talk him out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Krell is pretty hard set against what he fully labels as traitors and that they won't get away with this insubordination. And he's concerned that if he allows this to slip, that other clones will start to also just disobey orders.
Mm-hmm. He definitely says, I need to make an example out of these guys so that nobody else has a thought of A, disobeying an order, or B, not going with the flow, or even like questioning anything. He doesn't want that either. Mm-hmm. And Rex says, yeah, I totally get that, but I want you to know that everybody's on your side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you just need to give them a little bit of encouragement. Like, people are on your side, but, you know.
Like, they don't agree with your plan sometimes. Like, we also have opinions, but you're just throwing it away. So that's why everybody's, like, frustrated sort of thing.
Yeah. And he goes, that's exactly why I need to do this.
Right. Krell then, like, rushes even through the process more, where he's like, look, we don't have any time to waste, so, like, let's just skip the court-martial even, and let's just go straight to execution. And Rex is just like, hold up, what? And Krell is like, look, we're in the middle of a battle. We don't know when we'll get to court-martialing these guys. The war is... Yeah, the war is rapidly accelerating, and we don't have time for this. Just kill him. So Rex heads down to the brig and goes to the cell holding Fives and Jesse and informs both of them that Krell decided to skip the court-martial and go straight to execution. And Fives and Jesse, of course, react negatively to such a decision, to say the least.
I like the way you describe that. They react negatively. They react negatively to the news that they're going to get executed.
Killed without a court-martial.
I don't know why they're surprised.
Right.
The last fucking episode ended with Krell saying you're going to be court-martialed, then you're going to be executed, then you're going to be this, and then you're going to be this. Shouldn't have crossed me, because when you do, you pay the price, and now you're going to fucking die. And this one starts with, what? We're going to die?
Well, I think they're surprised that there's... Like, we're skipping over the due process, right? Like, there still seems to be some
due process.
I think there was the expectation of due process at the very least, and the fact that they're skipping over that is where the react negatively bit comes in. Let's see. So Fives starts to accept it. He's like, look, I knew what we did, we'd get in trouble for.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse's like, look, I
didn't sign up for this shit.
Right, yeah, basically. He's like, I get it, but come on now, guys. So Rex takes him out into in a hangar or something. I couldn't tell exactly where they were.
No, they're in just
they get let out.
They leave the brig, which, by the way, let's talk about the brig design a little bit, because this is really fucking cool. Initially, It kind of reminded me of like Loki's prison that he's in I guess Thor: The Dark World, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's like a light tube, and the platforms that they're on are transparent and just like lit around the edges, and then in the center there's like a single beam that I guess is like the elevator shaft, and the whole thing, this whole big circle, like moves up and down. They drop down to like a level where the actual jail cells are, and there are what looks to be like energy orbs, or spherical in nature, kind of, right? It looks like the prisoners are in like a ball of light.
Yes.
And there is this really cool effect that when, from either camera angle, if the prisoner is inside listening to one of the clone troopers on the outside, there's like a sound distortion going on. And,
yes, yeah.
And their voice will be clear, and vice versa when you're on the outside from the clone's perspective, and there's a prisoner on the inside, the prisoner's sound is distorted.
Yeah, it's like a slight, like, warbled muffling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some sort of, like, energy warble sort of thing.
I thought it was cool. This whole design...
Yeah, it's a good detail.
This whole design and, like, the details that they put into it was pretty awesome. So
yeah, I definitely like the design of this space.
I'm totally down for that. So they do leave the brig. These are two guys are handcuffed, and they're also in kind of different states of undress, where they still have like their under armor on.
Yes, yeah, it's like the black Under Armour that,
like the bodysuit.
Yeah, like the tight bodysuit, which still apparently has like some detailing on it.
Yeah, it's got the logo on it, man.
Yeah,
it's got the Republic logo on it. I thought that was pretty nifty.
Yep.
Yeah, and some of their armor's off. They obviously don't have their weapons, but one of them has binders, like their utility belt on. I don't think the other one does. No,
I don't remember catching that detail. That's for sure.
But anyway, they're led outside, and
yeah, they're definitely in a different space. It's like a big open flat space. They get lined up in front of like some sort of I don't know what it was.
It's just like a building, because Pong Krell is looking down on what's happening here from his tower.
Okay. So they're out.
So he is witness to what's going on. This would essentially just be in the, not even like a courtyard, but just like an open area outside of a barracks or a command center or something. Whatever you want to call
somewhere on the base. Right. So, let's see. Dogma is leading the firing squad.
Yeah, he is.
Who I did not realize that would be his position to play. But sure.
I think he volunteered for it.
Is that a thing you can volunteer for?
Maybe.
There's not a certain chain of command that...
Maybe Krell knew that he was going to be loyal to what Pong wanted
to what
done.
Krell wants.
Right. So he was like, hey, you're in charge. Get the firing squad.
Yeah. And Dogma, he does not have any reservations about what's going on.
He's like, look, two shits, man.
Yeah, he's like, look, we've been sent here to execute Fives and Jesse, so take aim, men. Take aim.
He's basically like, I told you so,
Yep.
And he just gets to the point. Ready, aim, and then Fives is like, no, wait. And he gives a nice little speech about how General
They're not
Krell
droids.
is wrong.
Yeah.
They're men, not droids. It's kind of stuff that we've heard either him say or other people say in the last couple of episodes, and just kind of
Yes.
it sums up his motivation for doing what he did, because he's basically like, I did what needed to be done because it was right, not because it was easy, and I'll do it again, even if, like, yes, we're supposed to obey orders, but we're not supposed to obey orders when they're wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're men here, not droids. His big thing is, man, we're men. We're not droids. We're not just a number. We're people. We need to treat each other like people. And
Dogma's like,
fire.
cool speech, bro. Yeah. Cool speech. Awesome. Carry on. The clones do fire, but they all intentionally miss. So we get a lot of scorched blaster holes in the building behind
So
Fives and Jesse's.
did they all shoot once?
And do they all shoot once?
Yeah.
Or at once?
How many times a piece do the people in the firing squad?
I think they all shot once.
Okay.
I think they all shot once, or some might not have at all, because there seemed to be a lot of clones in the firing squad.
There's 6.
For 2 of them.
But there are 10 blaster holes.
Oh, okay.
And there are 5 blaster holes that are smoking that you can see. So either they all shot twice and you just don't see 2 of them, or they all shot once and there was already some damage to this building.
Which is likely.
But with the attention to detail that we do see normally, just sync up the numbers. Like, if there's 6 people, have 6 holes that are smoking.
Right.
Have 1,000,000,003 other ones. That's cool. And I know other people don't pay attention to shit like that, but I'm like, all right, how many people are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how many bullet holes are there? How many? Oh, some of them are smoking. That's kind of cool. How many of those are there?
I didn't notice this shit at all. Not gonna lie.
It is to be said, did you see the clone that had like an Arbesh tattoo on the side of his head? Had some script up there.
Yeah.
So it says a good droid is a dead droid. And I don't remember the name of this guy, but I totally remember talking about him so long ago.
Right.
This is a clone that we've seen before, and we discussed the tattoo that he had on his head, and he came back. So that's cool. We do have a couple of callbacks with different clones that we've met in the past. Some of them are named, some of them are not. I'll just leave it at that until we get there.
Yep.
But yeah,
So,
like you said,
they all missed. Dogma basically tries to get the order carried through still, despite all of that, and Rex is like, bro, give up. Like, none of us are gonna kill these 2 guys. So Rex has Fives and Jesse released.
Yeah.
Krell is overwatching all of this, as you mentioned, and he orders Rex and Dogma to head up to the tower, and basically calls out Rex for disobeying orders once again, right? And Rex and Krell, they're basically about to get in a fight here, but then they get news that the Amarans are about to start another offensive.
They definitely have like a verbal pissing contest.
Right.
Because Krell's like, listen, clone, and he's like, captain. And they've got some verbal sparring going back and forth, and then they are interrupted by this announcement or intercom or incoming message or whatever it is.
Right. So basically, we are getting news that the Umbarans got hold of some clone armor and weapons captured from another platoon. So Krell wants Rex to go out there and make moves against them.
Yeah. I want to come back to this transmission later. Because there's something that I want to talk about with this transmission, but it's not until later. that it's
That's
relevant without spoilers, if that makes sense.
So, yeah, that's fine. Let's just move on then. So, Rex takes his platoon, and they head on out, and they get in a big old fight with this other offensive, right?
Yeah, the way that this scene kind of ends in Pong's office is Pong's like, all right, fuck it, nobody's gonna kill him, even though he was like, find somebody to do it, or I'll do it myself. He's like, nobody's gonna kill him, so just lock him up again, and then get your ass on the road, head to this place, and don't forget, they could be dressed as clones. Mm-hmm. Tell all your men they could be dressed as clones. Now go to it.
So, yeah, we get another battle scene. They make moves through. They do spot the Umbarans that are dressed as clones. They start shooting at each other. Basically, what we get then, because these are Umbarans dressed as clones with clone weaponry, we get a lot of blue lasers crisscrossing. Mm-hmm. So, visually, I kind of dug the idea of this, for clarity's sake, there's always been, like red lasers versus green lasers, or blue lasers versus red lasers, or red lightsabers versus blue lightsabers, right?
Right.
Like, there are different colorations that happen. That's why I appreciate the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin being blue versus blue. Like, shit's going down, right?
Right. Something ain't right here.
Just from like a symbolic standpoint, right? Have we ever discussed why, like, certain, like, why there would be, like, red lasers and not green? Is there a reason there's green or red lasers coming from, like, TIE fighters and various Star Destroyers and shit like that?
There is. And it has to do with, like, the gas or the compression of gas or something.
Because you know what's interesting, and I don't think we've discussed this yet, but if you go on Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, I'll have to look again, next time I'm writing it, probably next week.
Right.
So the two gunner positions, visually, it makes no sense. Because there's a left gunner and a right gunner, and then when they're shooting, you see the two lasers coming from left cockpit and right cockpit, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, port and starboard side of where the cockpit is, which is offset from the center of the ship, right?
Right.
So that already doesn't make sense. I do believe the two gunners have different colored lasers that shoot as well. For you to differentiate which gunner is hitting what item. Not that there's any aiming involved at fucking all when it comes to gunning on Smuggler's Run, but I'll have to verify. But I think the lasers are different colored on the same ship, and again, there's a port side and a starboard side laser firing directionality, which makes absolutely no sense, especially that port side. Because of, the starboard side, because of where the position of the cockpit on the ship is. Makes no fucking sense. Anyways, carry on.
So the only information that I have about blaster bolt color is that blaster bolts came in different colors. Red was most common color and was made from a cheaper gas. This is why the Confederacy of Independent Systems used red. This is why the Rebel Alliance used red. But it also says the Galactic Empire and the First Order used red as well. But then it says blue was used by the Galactic Republic. So I'm guessing blue is like a higher quality gas. Creates a different color beam, right? And the Galactic Republic had more money at its disposal. But the Resistance also used blue. Then green is associated with the Naboobian Security Force and the Umbarans, whereas yellow was used by Mandalorian. So I'm betting that comes up in Mandalorian.
Mandalorian.
Right. So Yeah, the only info that I have, I know there's more info out there, but this is what I could find on short notice, is that red is made from a cheaper gas. So there's your answer to that. And
All right.
the other colors are made by different gases, and who knows? Availability, price point, be my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that one has different powers over other ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe, because even though... What color is a Stormtrooper blaster bolt? Cause,
It's red, right?
right, that's what I thought. It's red, but when you set for stun, it's blue.
It's that blue circle.
So...
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not real sure on that, but the point of all of this is that we get into this battle where everybody's shooting blue lasers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rex figures out that everybody's fucking clones. There are no
Right,
bad
so-
guys dressed in
Not at all.
in armor here.
Yeah, and he finds that out because he comes across a corpse of one of the Umbarans, and the only other differentiation is we do have Rex's platoon that have the blue markings on their
They got blue trim.
clone armor. Yep, and then the other, the attacking quote-unquote Umbarans have yellow trim, and at some point Rex unmasks one of the yellow clone armored Umbarans, and it turns out to just be another clone.
Yep.
So Rex is horrified by all of this, of course.
Absolutely, man.
So he runs out. He dishelmets himself to run out and show to the yellow trimmed clones that they are in fact clones themselves. Is yelling frantically that they're all clones. They're all clones. They're all clones.
And he
Stop
starts
shooting. We're
ripping
clones. You're
people's
clones.
helmets off as he
Right,
he
yeah.
runs by.
And then everybody else is like, "Wait, what?" And then, it turns out the other troopers are from the 212th Attack Battalion.
Ooh, nice.
Yes. And so they run across, they start dishelmeting themselves too. They all dishelmet. They all take a step up to one another, and they're like, "Oh shit, he's right. They're all clones. What happened here?" And you know, there have been a lot of casualties already. It's not as brutal and as extended of a battle scene as we've seen in the first two episodes of this arc. But all the same, it's pretty brutal. Like we get a few like mortar shells that hit, and we see some clones flying through the air and stuff like that, landing lifeless. You know, it's a pretty well put together fight scene for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty. It's well executed in the fact that neither side has an advantage over the other side, because these are both groups of guys that were trained under the same training regiment, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So you know they're hiding behind trees and they're walking around. The only detail that should be mentioned is we do get like a tiny scene before this battle.
As
I don't
they're
know
like
who,
walking into battle, right?
Right. One of them kind of stops to make note of one of the flora and fauna of Umbara. It's one of the creatures we had seen previously, I think in the first episode of this arc.
Yeah, it's called a Vixus.
Right?
I kind of considered it like a knockoff Sarlacc.
Oh, basically, yes, yeah.
But
it's a very simplified Sarlacc, because I think we discussed too the idea, like if a Sarlacc has like a long body underneath.
And these are basically like a head and throat on the surface with tentacles, and that's it.
If that, yeah.
I think it's Tup, because Tup like saw what happened back in the first episode of the Umbara arc, Darkness on Umbara, right? And then Tup also later recalls this information again. So when I said I wanted to go back to that transmission that we saw earlier,
Yep.
was that fabricated?
Yes. I don't know how he got the timing, him being Krell, to get that sent in, but yeah, that's definitely a fabricated report. I don't know how Krell did it. I'm pretty sure even the clone sending that transmission might not even know.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow Krell pulled some strings somewhere to make that happen.
Okay.
Right?
Because it turns out, like, the leader of the yellow clones, the 212th, is Waxer, who is another clone that we've met before. Back on the Ryloth arc, it was Waxer and Boyle that were on, like, the side mission, and they come across Numa, the little Twilight girl.
Yeah.
So he has, like, a cartoon picture of Numa on his helmet, which is super cute.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Unfortunately, he dies with a tear dripping down his face, but not before filling Rex in on the fact that Krell is the one that sent them also. So Krell had two different platoons head to the same place and gave them both the same information.
Yep.
And that information was, hey, who you're fighting against is going to be dressed as you because the Umbaran stole some of our uniforms. Uniforms are different than armor. And is there 50 naked clones walking around? Like, where did they get the armor?
Right. I think the idea was, like, they captured it from another platoon, and then that platoon themselves were captured, right? So,
because I took the message as, like, they attacked and then, like, broke into the storeroom and ran off with the potatoes. Or the bologna sandwiches. That's a callback.
I didn't take it as that.
Way back.
I took it as, like, they captured platoons and then stole their armor.
Okay.
So.
I mean, that totally makes more sense.
Right. But yeah, so the 501st and the 212th come together. Rex takes lead of both, and they basically say, you know, they themselves go, treason. Like,
yeah, there's like this clandestine meeting. Is it the remnants of both of these platoons? Because I don't remember seeing any yellow trimmed helmets. I thought it was just later, the remnants of the 501st.
Well, at the end of this scene, the idea is that both the 212th and the 501st come together, but I agree with you. We don't see yellow trim basically for the rest of this episode.
Right.
The scene sells the idea that they both come together,
okay,
realizing that they are not, none of them are in Barnes.
Okay, cool.
And they both realize that Krell is a major dickwad to send them both to kill each other.
Yep.
So Rex, therefore, leads the charge to go arrest Krell for treason against the Republic.
Yep.
For ordering troops to fight themselves.
Yep.
They head back to the airbase. First thing they do is release Jesse and Fives.
So before that happens, as they're marching off, one trooper stops, takes his helmet off, and it's Dogma, and then like slinks away the other direction.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he sneaks off. You know that he's going to be on Krell's side here.
Right.
Thinking that, you know, he doesn't want to be... I think what Dogma sees is he sees their actions as treasonous.
Yep.
And has to be doing some mental gymnastics to be like, Krell must not have known, like some information must have been bad. He couldn't have possibly done that. You know, he's trying to work the gears of his mind into figuring out how this could have happened without Krell being at fault.
Right. From Dogma's standpoint, there's mental gymnastics is definitely the best way to put this. Like,
yeah,
there's so much overwhelming evidence between the fact that the 212th platoon leader, fucking Waxer, died right in front of them.
Right.
And the last thing he said was like, "Yo, it was Krell. Krell sent us."
Yep.
So who sent you? Krell? Huh? How about that?
Yep.
But yeah, so he sneaks off. Jesse and Fives get released. They get handed a couple of blasters themselves. They head on up to the command tower and confront Krell. Krell says, "Nope, fuck y'all. Y'all clones. Y'all beneath me. Y'all aren't human. You're basically he's like, you guys were created in a fucking lab.
What he says is, it's treason then.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a direct
another
quote.
Callback. Yep.
Which they totally could have done last week.
Right.
Just saying.
So
it can be done.
basically,
it can be done well, and it was done well here.
So he jumps across. He pulls out his 2 Foley double-sided lightsabers. Starts mowing down some clones. They're in a very small room, considering... did you get the number of clones that actually confronted Krell?
No, but it's a bunch.
It's definitely a lot. And a lot also get mowed down really quickly.
It's like... It seems like more than would fit in the elevator.
Right.
They got a clown car of fucking clones coming out of this elevator.
Yep. And nobody lands a shot on Krell whatsoever. He's doing a really good job with his 2 dual-sided lightsabers.
How do you feel about that?
I found it interesting. Look, it's not something I would actively do, but I am curious about the way they would have to... Like, he needs his own new fighting style almost, right? Because, like, one dual-sided lightsaber makes sense from, like, a fighting stance. It's just, like, holding a staff in the middle sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to have 2 and to swing them around both independently without them either hitting each other or you not slicing yourself as they are crisscrossing paths. Like, it's that part that fascinates me. It's not, like, it's a cool detail that he has 2. Like, that's fine for, like, blue sky Imagineering, right? Like, oh, like, what if we gave a guy 2 dual-sided lightsabers instead of just 1, right? But then to think through of what that actually means, how he has to fight, the fact that he has 4 arms is of no help here, right?
Well, it might be. Like, if you're fighting with a bow staff and you only have 1 arm, you're at a disadvantage than if you have 2 arms. So if you're fighting with 2 bow staffs, then having 4 arms would give you an advantage, right? Minimum 3.
But to me, it's like, is he handing one from, like, lower arm to upper arm as he's, like, swinging them around? You know?
Occasionally,
like,
I believe so.
There's a like, look, because, like, he can't swing one horizontally while he's spinning the other vertically.
Right.
Otherwise, they will hit each other, or he has to time that right so that they are, like, missing each other. Like, it's, like he's going in a gear wheel sort of mechanism. At certain times, it looks like we see... So he has one that's green on both sets, one that's blue on both sets. Mm-hmm. There are a few moments where it looks like both are spinning horizontally around him.
Mm-hmm. It's like helicopter blades, man. He's just wicked fast.
But what's weird is, like, one is above the other. So
he should be cutting his wrist off, is what you're saying? Right.
You see, so, like, that's where the dual-sided lightsabers, like, throws me off. It's a cool detail. It's not out of character for this guy to want 2 of them. And it is cool that they are the foldy variety for both of them. But, like, it's cool. I don't have, like, major complaints about the fact that he has them. But my mind starts going, like, here, this is where my mind starts going to these logistics of how the choreography works and the fighting style. Like, how would you train for that? Who is training? Is somebody training you, or are you just picking it up yourself?
So, according to Wikipedia, the advantage of his 4-armed physiology allowed him to use a unique form of Jar-Kai, wielding 2 double-bladed lightsabers at the same time. Jar-Kai is the art of using 2 lightsabers at once. So, having 4 arms, he was able to not only do 2, but then from there modify that fighting style to use 2 double-bladed sabers, So I think, yes, if he didn't have 4 arms, he wouldn't be able to do this, and it is because of that physical attribute that he is able to modify one fighting style into another.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, visually it's cool. It's pretty cool.
I thought it was fucking awesome.
I still have questions. Yeah. So the fight goes from the tower to where he smashes out the window and then flees into the jungle. Rex starts to give chase, but then Dogma stops them.
Yep.
And holds them all at gunpoint and goes, "Look, you guys are the traitors.
You guys are traitors. Everyone except for me and Pong Krell."
Yeah, like, I'm the one who's been following orders. You guys can't follow orders at all. Like, you guys can't do that. That's treason. Like, that's bad. You have to follow the orders of the general no matter what he says. Then basically we get another reiteration, like, look, they were engineered to follow orders, but in the end they are still clones of a human. Right. And because of that, they are able to
free thought.
There's agency.
Yeah,
they have self-agency. So Tup gives them one final warning, and then basically Dogma gets arrested himself. And then everybody else carries on to chase after General Krell. They're rushing through the jungles again, and then Krell ambushes them. We get more cool fighting with the dual lightsabers. Tup gets thrown and then lands near that Vixus we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight is not going well for the clones whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So then, yeah, Tux calls into the troops to be like, "Hey, I got an idea. Lure him towards me." And Rex is like, "What? Trust me. Lure him over here." So he does, and Krell steps on one of the tentacles of the Vixus and starts shaking Krell around. Krell does a good job of kind of like, there's like that extra mouth that pops out of the Vixus. Krell cuts that. Krell cuts the tentacle he's on, gets taken up by another tentacle.
Yeah, I thought that extra mouth was a tongue.
I couldn't. Yeah, because there's no like internal thing. I guess it's not like in the a xenomorph mouth, but there's like an extending.
Yeah, it's like a grabby tongue,
there's
a
an articulating. Yes, yeah, definitely an articulating tongue.
And then I also felt like this sequence, was not only designed as a way for the clones to be able to have the upper hand, but was also designed to showcase like a new camera movement thing that they had going on, because he'd be like whipping around and the camera would like sometimes be following him, and there was like zoom in, zoom out things going on, and you had that weird thing that happened in like the early 2000s when 3D was like a big craze, where like, you know, you'd like bounce off of a trampoline and like fire towards the camera and like reach out and pause and then like drop back. Like there was like stuff like that. Like it all looked neat, but felt visually unnecessary.
Right. Yeah, the camera is definitely doing stuff that a real camera in real life would not be able to do. I know 2 episodes ago I mentioned that they used it well in a dialogue scene where the camera would kind of whip and pan and move through characters. So we had a dialogue scene that was a oneer that worked really well. But I agree with you here, where in this situation maybe a little bit more realism in what the camera's doing would have sold the scene a little bit better. Yeah. Or at least that's my feeling. I don't disagree with you that it stood out at the very least that the camera was doing some funky stuff.
Like, it looked cool, but it really felt like we had this super build of action, like two double-bladed lightsabers, clones surrounding this Jedi, and all sorts of attacks going on, from hand-to-hand combat to, like deflecting blaster bolts to straight up lightsaber attacks, which, by the way, I noticed never actually sever anything with these clone troopers.
Right.
Like, even when you see, because you can see like the burn line through. So if it was like through an arm, there would be like a section of arm on the backside that wasn't cut, so that limbs were not actually severed, or heads weren't severed, or torsos weren't cut in half, or anything like that. Like, the troopers remained in one piece, minus slashes of lightsabers. And I think this is because they're living beings and not droids, right? Because if this was a droid fight, there'd just be droid parts flying all over the place. Droids would be falling apart. Heads be flying, arms be rolling, Yeah,
I was curious about this too, because there's definitely like a slash that goes across one of the clones' torso.
And then he gets kicked.
He gets kicked, and at the very least, we should have like a Hannibal like disbowelment, I guess. Like,
nah, the armor, the armor kept the guts in.
All right,
but sure. I think it was a conscious choice to like not have anything actually be severed. Like, never does a blade completely go through a limb or a body part. But my point was, like, we go from that, which is like super intense, to like Jedi on a rubber band, like
it's basically
Jedi on a
what is like
an unmanned garden hose, Yeah. To which he, eventually cuts it off. But like I said, visually, it's neat what is happening with the camera movements and whatnot. But it's like super intense battle sequence. Other thing.
Yep.
And then like the next thing that happens. And the next thing that happens is that like he actually lands down on the ground. And he does not like this Vixus. And then Tup shoots the Vixus?
Yeah, Tup shoots the Vixus.
And then
to
stuns...
calm it down or something. Yeah, stuns Krell. And then Krell is taken out. He gets arrested. He gets thrown in a brig. So we're back in the brig again right after this. And Rex starts to question him, so we get like a full villainous monologuing scene.
Absolutely, man.
So
we got the Krell evil exposition dump.
Yep. So he has foreseen the rise of a new order, and he knows it's coming, and he knows that the clones and the Republic will lose the war, and he wants to be on the right side of victory after the war. So he's looking out for himself, essentially. Rex, or one of the clones, is like, oh, so you joined the Separatists. And Krell's reasoning is that he hasn't joined the Separatists per se. He says
he's out for himself.
He's out for himself. He just wants to be sure that no matter how the war shakes out, that he has a place in the universe, in the galaxy afterwards.
So what corrupted him? What corrupted him from a by-the-book Jedi to abandoning all Jedi scruples?
That's a good question.
For the benefit of just himself.
I don't know. I'm curious if there's like... if there's more... if he was getting a lot of Force visions or something, I'm not going to lie. Did we mention... it was last week where I was like, look, I would love to have like one full episode of court-martialing.
Yes.
Of Law and Order style trial bits. Mm-hmm. I wish this moment was expanded a lot more so we could get questions like that. Also, because it's this sort of revelation that I get that this is the clone story. This is the clones taking charge. Mm-hmm. But with a revelation like this, I personally feel like it would have held more weight if we had gotten Obi-Wan and Anakin and Mace and Yoda to also witness Krell spewing this shit, right? Because he does lay down some big things, and yes, it leaves questions like that because we don't get like that transition. We just get that he has seen the future, has come to him in some sort of Jedi Force vision,
right.
And he does mention that he wants to become Count Dooku's new apprentice.
So do you think that he has been in contact with Dooku?
I don't think so. There's no evidence for that.
Okay, well, my next question was, has he been in contact with Sidious then? So that would be a no. Do you think that he is aware of a Sidious-like person playing both sides, pulling everybody's strings? Like, is he that?
Yes.
Is he that in tune to it?
He's somehow getting that information. I do have a sense that he has that information, that somebody is taking them out, because I think he has a line where it's like a force from within or something like that will take down the Republic, right?
Yep.
I forget what the exact line, but he does say something to that effect. We do get a moment where Dogma is in the cell next to him. Dogma, who's been following this dude, suddenly realizes that Krell is a fucking crazy person.
And he's sad.
Yeah, he's very sad. He's like, I trusted you. And Krell is like I said, clones are fucking dumb, and you were the dumbest of all the clones.
Yep.
So he was like, he was counting on the blind loyalty, and Dogma was the one that delivered.
So this answers the age-old question of who is the bigger fool, the fool or the fool who follows him? And it's the fool who follows him.
Oh yeah, for sure, because he ends up fucking up as much shit as everybody as the actual fool himself.
Right.
Creating more problems for damn sure. So let's see. They leave. So Rex and the crew leave the prison for a hot second.
Yep.
And Rex takes full control of this airbase, but they get information that the communications had been tampered with, and that's
the transmitter was sabotaged, which is why all their
yes.
shit was all fucked up, and which is why we were on Minecraft Skype time.
And that's why they were getting some shit information, because Krell had programmed it as such.
Right.
So we get the news that Obi-Wan Kenobi had captured the capital for quite a while now. But
I missed that.
Yeah. So the capital had been captured, but Krell just kept leading them on pointless battles for no fucking reason. But that now they know that the surviving Umbarans are leaving the capital, but they're on their way to attack the airbase. And because that their numbers are already so low after Krell had them, fighting themselves out and sending them to their constant death for a while, the clones are concerned that they might not be able to hold the airbase, and thus Krell would escape and then run off to the Separatists with all of the knowledge he has after his admission that he does want to, in fact, become Count Dooku's apprentice. So Rex decides that, he's too dangerous to be left alive, and decide to, in turn, execute Krell. They head back to the prison. Fives releases Dogma, and Rex is the one holding the blaster that will execute Krell. Krell starts saying a few last lines to try and get into Rex's head. He's like, look, you don't got it in you. You can't do this.
Yeah, he fucking calls him out. He's like, do it. Oh, you can't do it. That's right. Because you're a clone and you suck.
You're a clone. You're meant to follow orders.
You're afraid.
You can't create. Yeah, you can't make your own decisions. Krell keeps talking and then is shot mid-sentence, and we get the opposite camera angle, and it turns out that Dogma ended up shooting him.
Yep.
Using a pistol that he
stole
grabbed from Fives' holster.
Yep.
Fives notices his pistol is missing, and it's right there in Dogma's hands. So Krell is completely out of the picture. We continue on. Fives tells Rex that Obi-Wan and his troops have held off the rest of the Umbarans, and so all sectors are secured, and thus the invasion of Umbara is fully done with. Dogma is taken into custody still, but he gets like a light nod from Rex for, in fact, killing Krell, I guess, would be the implication here.
Question.
Yes.
What do you think Dogma is being taken into custody for? Because I don't think that it's shooting Krell.
It's not for shooting Krell. He's not being taken for shooting Krell. I think there's still because he was.
Is it like the attempted detainment of fellow clone troopers?
It's something like that. It's like, even though the other clones were in a mutiny at the time, the fact that Dogma was still following bad orders and therefore could be seen as like a separatist sympathizer is a possible implication there.
Do you think there's going to be any repercussions that come down upon him?
There could be, I think.
Well, I know there could be, but I'm saying, do you think there will be?
This is where I wish we have the full court-martial episode. So as I was mentioning during the monologuing scene with Krell, I wouldn't have minded if this was a 5-episode arc where we kind of run into those implications. Because as this episode wraps up here, we just get one last little speech from Rex where he basically questions the existence of the war itself. Like, even though that's why they're programmed and created to begin with, Rex is just like, I just don't, like, he's starting to like lose understanding in the war itself.
Yeah, I said, what's the point of all of this?
Right. And Fives is like saying, he tells Rex, look, one day the war will be over. But Rex then has a excellent question, which is, well, what happens to us then?
Right, we're soldiers. What next? What then?
Yeah, like, they were specifically created for the war. Not for the war, but just for war in general, right?
I'd say for that war, for sure.
Well, because how long was production happening before they figured out that the clones would be needed?
So it was 10 years during Attack of the Clones.
Right. So it was basically...
So this is...
Sifo Dyas went during the events or near the time of the events of the Phantom Menace, ordered a shit ton of clones to be made, and then 10 years later, a war is declared, and then, by golly, they had a bunch of clones that could help them out, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but there was no anticipation that this war would happen when Sifo Dyas went and ordered the clones, right?
Well, I mean, he kind of pulled a Krell and was, seeing the future.
True. So, okay. But anyways, Rex has a good point in terms of just what happens to these clones. That's the final dialogue we have. There's an iris out. Cue loud music. But, so back to my original point for kind of just getting to this end here.
Mm-hmm.
I get... It's a really quick plot point that Umbarans are starting to invade the airbase, only to be turned around and go, oh no, Obi-Wan took care of that. So we just have that little plot moment as a justification for someone to kill Krell.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But, like I said, I would not have minded if we had gotten into the further implications of what Krell has done here.
Yeah, I see where you're going here.
And the fact that I get that it would go against kind of what other Jedi know in Revenge of the Sith, but I feel like for 4 episodes of all the crazy shit Krell has done, if we get into the next episode and it starts a new arc, but we don't get any sort of... Like, I personally need Anakin just to even show up and be like, holy shit, what the fuck did Krell do to you guys? Right? Like, just some sort of... Like I said, I get that this is the clones taking charge, but I also need just some sort of other authority figure to acknowledge that what Krell did was absolutely horrific and, worthy of executable, like, war crimes, right?
I can say that Pong Krell is at least mentioned in another episode, so okay. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, but like I said, I need like one full Law and Order episode that just dives into all the Jedi, like the fact that they had a Jedi that they respected turn separatist, right? It's very convenient that he just ends up shot here when I would have preferred a full court-martialing, I guess, But that would be the only major sort of... It's not a complaint, really, but it's just a disagreement in feeling with how this arc ends.
Okay. So do you want to just transition into what your Dave Ray
full judgment here?
Filoni Baloney is here? Yeah.
Other than that, I really like this episode. I do think it closes out these 4 episodes well, right? It's satisfying enough. It's definitely satisfying enough. I think all said and done, these 4 episodes together form a very strong arc. That's for darn sure. I think we don't have too much of any wasted moments in all 4 episodes. Usually we've talked about like 2 episode arcs even that could have been melded in just one single episode if they had just been more efficient about it, back in season 1 when they're finding their footing with any of the spacing.
Right.
That the fact that we have 4 episodes, and I feel like 4 is just about the right amount.
Right.
Like I said, we could have used a 5th, in my opinion, but as presented to us, I think the 4, what they've done here, by no means do I feel like it should have been shortened, right?
Okay.
But I like it. I really like this episode a lot. Some cool stuff happening for sure.
Yeah, I give this one a thumbs up as well. And as far as this 4-part Umbara arc goes, I like each one more than the one before. This, in my opinion, is one of the best episodes of the Clone Wars that we've seen so far. And if they would have done like a mid-season theatrical release, this would have been a great 4-parter to put together and do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna... If these 4 episodes were put together, this would definitely work and flow a lot better than the actual theatrical film we have.
Yeah, totally.
Like...
There's no doubts there.
Yeah, even any sort of like ebb and flow in the arcs, I think just all makes sense. Like there are 4 acts here that continually flow into one another.
I think there would be some concision that could happen. Like we would be able to kind of we'd be able to combine a couple elements together as opposed to like first episode, solid action, some dialogue stuff, setup. Second episode, solid action, some dialogue stuff, building. And if we could take this 4-parter and make it one story instead of having to break it up, it would be even better.
Right. Yeah, definitely. The transitions between episodes, but could be, massaged. But again, the theatrical movie that we have is so jarring. In well, that's done. What's happening next? And you're like looking at your watch. You're like, we're 22 minutes into this movie. Yeah. Like what the actual hell here, guys? But if it were to happen here, you're like, all right, yes, this is the next logical step in what they would have to do while dealing with this dumbass Krell here, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with you. This is definitely one of the stronger arcs that we've gotten in the Clone Wars. Easily, like no doubt in my mind.
Now I do have some criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because I watched each of these episodes so many times, or if it's because we've been talking about this story arc for like a month.
Right.
But somewhere mid this episode, I could see where things were going. I could remember things that happened, and I felt like it took so fucking long to get there.
Uh-huh.
And over the past, 3 or 4 weeks, I'm like, fuck, I'm still watching, the same story.
Uh-huh.
When are we gonna get somewhere with this shit? And even though I like them individually, and I like it as a whole, I don't know, I think this is better binged in 4 episodes as opposed to watched weekly.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I can. I don't know. I think it stuck with me better though that we watched them week by week.
Yeah, I just kind of equated
that's an ongoing
to
debate. But that's an ongoing debate right now with Netflix in general, right? I think the way we discuss television, interestingly enough, as we said on a podcast where we discuss a television show, super explicitly, but, in terms of binge culture of TV shows now, I'm not going to lie, they're, the fucking Punisher, season 1 of Punisher, just nothing of that stuck to me, I binged the whole thing in about a weekend.
Right.
And then I moved on with life, So... I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. But there's something about this arc that stuck me better because I got it in small doses.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it could sit with me for a while and I could think about it before I moved on to the next episode.
Right.
And then it built from there. And then finally this episode we get to that mutiny.
Right.
I was hoping for that mutiny for 3 solid weeks. And then we get here and there it is.
Yeah.
Got that fucking mutiny.
That's true.
I understand what you mean, though. I understand what you mean.
It's like a delicate balance of, was this, like you said, you would have loved to see a fifth part to this.
Yes.
And for me, even though I liked each week of it and I found them enjoyable separately and together, part of me was like, this is still going on. Why is it still going on? Why couldn't we have found a way to maybe wrap this up or something?
Look,
so we can move on to something else,
I will say, at the very least, with my wish for 5th episode, it would have at least taken us off Umbara, right? So in my visioning of the Clone Wars, if I were to show run this show, there would be an element of that sort of anthology series of stories happening, but then we could still have one overarching story that can continue in different settings, as many other TV shows tend to approach, right? There's one kind of big arc with lots of little ones.
Well, this one,
whereas
this one's easy. It's the fucking Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have those, as you said, you can have those little bits going on here, and you've got bits going on over there also. I mean, even in last week's episode, there's not only is there the Clone Wars, but then there's also like the battle on Umbara, and not even just that, but like we focused on Pong Krell and the shit that he was doing. We know for a fact there was another battle going on the other side of the planet, which is one aspect that I really, really like about this story arc, because finally somebody took the time or the dedication to say, hey, just because we're on the planet doesn't mean everybody needs to fucking be fighting together. Like, this is a galactic wide war. So why, when we go to a planet, are we just walking down Main Street and everybody is just standing there waiting for their turn? So Pong Krell's got his shit going on. Obi-Wan Kenobi's got his shit going on somewhere else. And then when our clones from Pong like break loose, there's an aerial battle that's probably bigger than anything that's going on the fucking planet, like also going on.
No, I appreciate that as well, but what I mean is from like a TV storytelling standpoint. Usually, typically, like, say you have just the example that's coming to my head right now is like Arrow. You have the main character of Green Arrow.
Right.
So you follow his story.
Right.
And he has maybe one main villain that will last that entire season.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the villain is dealing directly with him, or the villain is doing something quietly in the background. So we get plot A, plot B. Plot A, plot B. And then sometimes it's like plot A part 1, plot A part 2, plot A part 3. And then we move on to another little mini plot A, while plot B is that villain still setting up his shit in the background. Right? But with the way the Clone Wars does, yes, the overarching arc is, yes, the entire Clone War. Mm-hmm. But the way the show approaches it is still as an anthology series. So, like, here's a little bit of Obi-Wan's story. Here's a little bit of Krell's story. Here's a little bit of Ahsoka's story.
Right.
Here's a little bit of Anakin's story, right?
Right.
So what I mean to say is, like, yes, the anthologyness would still be there if I were to showrun this, but I wouldn't call it like a 4 and done. Like, I wouldn't call these like arcs even, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're just gonna have a set of episodes that deal. Yes, here are 4 on Umbara. Maybe there's 1 court martial, and then there's 6 other episodes that are still dealing with like the aftermath of what Krell put the Jedi through, right?
Right.
Like, different actions lead to other consequences here and there, but at least in the early seasons of the show, we had so many stories that were so sort of standalone-y, and then they would kind of get back to the overarching Clone Wars deal.
Yep.
You know? So the show has definitely gotten better about that as they kind of take the Clone Wars as a whole and build into it, especially the way you've mentioned it, where we run into other big battles, and then we find out, you know, Obi-Wan won. He took the capital like a while ago, and that went and happened.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, Obi-Wan. I like that. Yeah, it's the fact that it's the full universe is happening finally, right? Rather than just like, oh, like this story happens, but it has no consequence on these other things. Like, but that's where this, to me, that's why like the ending, as much as I think it's satisfying for this arc, still I think there's a little bit of way to finesse that. There's still exploration there I need to go through.
Even with the death of Krell, it's not the death of his story. Like, there's still more that could be told.
Right. Yeah.
And I totally get it. And I'm totally on board with you there.
Yeah.
So,
and like, that's not a full like criticism of like the arc or anything. It's just like, it's just a thought I have about how the show has evolved since we started here, especially and I didn't think about it, but the way you compared it to the theatrical release and how they just stitched together 4 basically arbitrary episodes into one film.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sure.
Yep. Any other notes you got on this episode?
That's all I got for this one, man. I'm eagerly anticipating whatever we have coming up next week. We can get off of, or we can turn the light on in the darkness of Umbara and move on to a planet that is more well lit.
Hopefully,
do you got the episode title coming up next week?
Yeah, it is Kidnapped next week. We got an episode called Kidnapped, so we shall see what that entails.
Yeah, for sure.
But until then, if you want to reach out to us at all, notthenerds.com would be it, correct?
Yeah, head on over to notthenerds.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can catch our social media links there. Somewhere in the middle, you've got links to shoot you over to YouTube. You can listen to our pretty voices, and we got a static image from, some screenshot from the episode that Lorenzo finds. That's his department. But if you do that, hit that subscription button, give us a like, comments, all that jazz. Refer us to a friend if you would. That'd be great. And that's kind of as always for the graphic art. Besides those thumbnails, we always like to thank Kevin Warren at They Call Me K-Dub for putting that together, and Lindsay at Strange Fantasy Music for putting together the jingle that appears at the beginning and end of every episode. So thank you to them. But until next week, I've been Lorenzo Fon. Kevin Horde here.
These aren't the nerds you're looking for.
Bye-bye.